evening. Today is Monday, November 24th. Welcome to the Zoning Board of Appeals regular scheduled meeting. Call this meeting to order. Samantha, could we have a roll call, please?
Chris Bilecki.
Here.
Don Bemis. Brandy Burrows.
Here.
Clark Gruber. Lisa Kupiars.
Here.
Amy Nichols.
Here.
Randy Timmer.
Here. Excuse me, sorry. Entertain a motion to approve the agenda.
So moved. Support.
It's been moved and supported. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Moving on.
Do we have to do anything about the absences?
That's just for council.
Sorry.
Nope.
If you'd like to,
It's
but
a
there's
good
no
question.
obligation.
All right, has everybody had a chance to look at the meeting minutes from last time? There's a lot of them.
Motion to approve?
Support.
It's been moved and supported. All those in favor?
Yes.
Yes.
Opposed? All right, passed. Moving on to number 5. Interested citizens in the audience will be heard on items not on the agenda. Anyone? All right, well, moving on then. Which brings us to number 6, unfinished business, 554 William Street. Kelly.
Thank you. So this evening, 554 Williams is back on the agenda. I think there are a lot of us that have a bug in our throat. There's been a lot of illness in the community, so apologize for that. I don't think I'm quite as bad off as you are, Mr. Chairman. So Cindy Compton, Todd Schubert, and Brad Potter from NewCo are here tonight to discuss the 554 Williams Street project. As you might recall, in August, the ZBA reviewed an application for several variances related to the construction of a 3-unit structure on the site. The ZBA granted variances related to setbacks for the structure, but denied others related to placing an accessory structure and a pool in the front yard. However, one decision, the decision related to a height variance request, was postponed so the applicant could work with a design team to further refine the request and provide a little bit of additional information so the ZBA could decide if the request was in fact the minimum amount necessary to overcome the hardship. So we have some updated information in the packet. There is a site plan page with some site contours shown. There is a table in the corner that was not updated, so that information that is in the table is outdated and relates to the packet from August. But the elevation page that is also in the packet shows high and low points on the property, and the team is asking for a 3.75-foot variance from the 45-foot height maximum in the Central Business District. So tonight, we don't need to hold a public hearing, but we should take public comment from anybody that would like to comment on this agenda item, and then review standards, take action on the request.
All right, sounds good. All right. Well, I guess let's start with, is there anybody here that would like to speak on this? All right. So, moving on from that. Is there anything that you guys want to add to this before we get into the standards, or?
Well, we brought Brad with us so he could answer questions if you're not totally understanding the dimensions there. And we spent a little more time on it, pinpointing, so we didn't kind of have a range of height. It's a 45-foot high structure, but because of the way you determine the finished floor elevation is a mean of the top of the hill and the bottom, but actually 2 feet out from the foundation.
Right.
That we got that request down. So Brad Potter's here to answer questions about the actual drawings if you have questions about that.
Okay. Do any of you guys have questions about
I'm
the
just trying to recreate the conversation we had at that meeting, and I think there were two issues that struck me. Was one, we were uncertain as to the height, and it seems like we're now certain of the height. But the other issue I thought that came up was it wasn't until you actually got into starting the build that you thought you could bring it in at that height. So there was like a range we were looking at, correct? Are we, first off, are we confident that we've got the right measurements, and are we confident that you can maintain build to that measurement standard if we grant the variance?
Yes, we are confident on that. The way we've worked at this, the majority of the grade at the top of the hill is 600. We're going to be 45 feet from there. And the peculiarity is that corner, because it does drop off so much right there. That's what was kind of throwing off all the measurements. And that's really what that was really kind of what was triggering this whole process. So, and having spoken with Cindy, the way we're looking at this, we may actually bring that grade up a little, so we may need even less of a variance when we're all said and done. But based on the grades we have right now, we believe we are completely fine with that.
So 3.75 feet would be the max anticipated,
Yes,
and it could come in under that.
correct.
Thank you.
Did you have to modify anything?
Nope.
Okay. It was just doing the remeasure?
It was just depending on where you measure from, exactly.
Okay.
Yep.
No further questions, Chairman.
I appreciate your time and diligence on this. I know it takes a lot to get to this point, but I do think that really helps everyone understand, where we're going to be at and what the minimum is that we're looking for. So,
And Mr. Chairman, if this variance is approved, this project still has to go to Planning Commission, correct?
correct. All right. Well, Amy, since you're my designated reader for this evening.
I'm the reader today. Isn't that exciting? Okay. So I will start with number one, dimensional non-use variances. To grant a dimensional non-use variance, the ZBA must find that all of the following factors exist. A, there are exceptional or extraordinary circumstances or conditions applying to the property in question that do not apply generally to other properties in the same zoning district. Exceptional or extraordinary circumstances can include narrowness, shallowness, shape of the lot, by reason of topographical conditions, extraordinary situations on the land or structure, or by reason of the use or development of the property immediately adjacent to the property in question.
We read it all.
I read it all. I figured I might as well. I was practicing.
All right.
I think those conditions have been met. We all know, we've all driven by there 1,000 times. We know how the grade causes the topographical challenge, and so I think we have met that.
So would we describe it as yes due to the grade of the lot? Do we feel we need to go into any more detail than that?
Yeah.
Okay.
No, I think that's sufficient.
Great. Okay, that the condition or situation of the specific piece of property for which the variance is sought is not of so general or recurrent a nature as to make reasonably practical the formulation of a general regulation for such conditions or situations.
Again, I think we've met that. There isn't another piece of property like that, I don't think, within the central business district.
Yep.
I kind of agree with you there.
Kind of goes back to the first.
Yeah, I think all of these, Randy, are going to be based on the unique nature of that specific space.
When we make the motion, we do need to be specific.
Correct.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. C, that such variance is necessary for the preservation and enjoyment of a substantial property right, similar to that possessed by other properties in the same zoning district. I can read the rest if you want, but
Well, no,
that's the
we
gist.
kind of need to go through, yep, no.
I believe that's been met.
Yeah, I do too. Ladies?
Yes, I agree.
Okay. Moving on to D. That strict compliance with the requirements of this ordinance would unreasonably prevent the owner from using the property for a permitted purpose, or would render conformity unnecessarily burdensome or impractical.
On that one, I said no. That strict compliance with the ordinance would be that it is 45 feet. And that's the way that I interpreted this. And I don't think that if it was 45 feet, I don't think it would prevent the owner from using the property for a permitted purpose or would render conformity unnecessarily burdensome or impractical. So, but that, I realize I may be the only one. I'm just being a stickler. So,
I kind of, when I look at the drawing, like, most of them are 45 feet, you know, because of the way the topographical nature of this lot. One of them is going to have to be higher, just the way it's built. It doesn't look like it from the front, and I think you would affect the design from the front if you had one that was shorter to meet the 45 feet. Even though it's only 3 feet, it still, I think, would be noticeable.
I agree. I think that this particular situation comes back to this particular lot and the way that the slope is on that, particularly on that front unit, because it will be the highest point. And quite honestly, I'm shocked that they've got it down to basically 3.5 feet.
absolutely,
So
yeah.
I think that's fantastic work on their part. And so again, I commend them on doing the research to this and finding out exactly what it can be so that we are looking at the very minimum needed. So, yeah, I completely understand your point. I just think this one in particular is a little bit more site-specific because of that.
Well, I contradict myself in 5 because a lot of it is the nature of the area it's at. It's very, the adjacent properties, it's sort of a, a wash.
Yeah.
I agree. I think they've met it.
Okay.
Okay, moving on. E, the variance will not be significantly detrimental to adjacent property and the surrounding neighborhood. I think that's,
Right.
it's met, yeah. F, the variance will not impair the intent or purposes of this ordinance.
I don't believe so. Again, site-specific.
I kind of agree with you. This is such an oddball
Yeah,
situation that
right.
I don't know how the ordinance could have been written considering this
Right.
lot, so. G, that the variance requested is the minimum amount necessary to overcome or mitigate the difficulty.
And we can finally answer that one with yes.
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 Yeah.
Good.
If they were asking for additional stories, then I think I would say no, but yeah, I think this has definitely been met.
Okay, and last but not least, the immediate practical difficulty causing the need for the variance request was not created by any affirmative action of the applicant. Example, not self-caused.
Correct.
I believe that has been met. The applicant didn't subdivide this property and create the shape. It's very unique, hence why we're here today, given the location, size, the 3 roads, the slope, the grade, all of the things.
The 3 front yards. Yeah.
All right. Well, moving through our set of standards then.
You gonna make a motion?
Unless you're prepared to.
No, you were writing somewhere.
I think he's got a good second for you, though.
Okay, let me get zoomed in here. Forgive me, my computer keeps going very small and very big, so. All right. I would make a motion to approve the dimensional non-use variance request for for William Street, given the unique shape, size, grade, or slope of the lot, and that it is the minimum amount requested at 3.75 feet over the height ordinance, bringing the permitted height to no more than 48.75 feet when measured from average grade, and that all permitting requirements are met.
I second that motion.
Legal counsel happy with?
Yep. Okay.
Excellent, wonderful. All right. Well, we have a motion and a second. Samantha, if we could please have a roll call when you are ready.
Balicki?
Yes.
Burrows?
Yes.
Kupiars?
Yes.
Nichols?
Yes.
Timmer?
Yes.
Motion carries.
All right, guys. Congratulations. Look forward to seeing it.
And thanks for doing that extra work.
Yes.
And that, you took our guidance, our counsel, our input, if you will.
Yep.
And actioned it, and I think that's great.
I think it's going to be a beautiful project, considering what it is now. It's going to really enhance that area. So thank you for making your effort.
All right. So, moving on, brings us to item number 7, new business, 964 Everett Parkway. And again to Kelly.
Thank you, sir. 964 Everett Parkway is another dimensional variance request from Jessica McGrath. This request is to expand a patio and place an above-ground hot tub, a 7-foot by 9-foot hot tub behind the house. And the lot is actually a condominium unit at the Trailside or Everett Park, depending how you know the development, planned unit development on the city's south side. The applicant does have a small yard. It's about 14 and a half feet by 32 feet, but cannot meet the required setbacks of 10 feet from side and rear lot lines in order to place the hot tub. So tonight we do need to hold a public hearing and then review the variance request against our standards.
Right.
And Jessica is here.
Okay. Wonderful. All right. Well, Jessica, if you want to step on up for a second and tell us a little bit about what we're looking at here, what you're trying to do.
Yeah, absolutely. Good evening. Thank you for your time. I'm going to do a quick overview, and then obviously we'll go into the standards. But yeah, I appreciate you giving me the opportunity to speak with you about the request for dimensional variance to install a standard size hot tub on the limited common area. It's a nice feature, obviously, to have privately, and you can have it year-round. It's the #1 searched amenities for short-term rentals, and I do intend for this property to serve as short-term rental property, and I pursued that licensing separately. And, in general, I've been complying with the processes, and I would otherwise completely comply with this ordinance, including that the hot tub be 10 feet away from the next unit, but for that the common area or that it's deemed common area, so there's technically no property line outside of the unit area, but there's more than 10 feet. In fact, there's more than 20 feet between the area where the hot tub will be and the neighbor's unit. And I did have this, it was very important to me, it was a contingency for my purchase of the property, and I have the tentative HOA approval for this. This is a specific situation created, again, by how that association is platted, and my variance would have otherwise have no impact on the city or neighboring community. It would, however, ensure that I have the same rights to amenities that other people have, and that I would have an accessory that's expressly permitted and desired. In general, and I know we can go into detail with the variances, with the standards, but I don't know, maybe we'll hear tonight, of any objections to this from neighbors. And again, the HOA is conditionally approved, and I'm taking action, anything within my, reasonable power to mitigate any potential impact, including, for example, there'll be privacy panel along both edges, so two sides of the four sides of the hot tub. Not only does that, give the privacy, but it also does direct any potential sound back toward the unit. There will be house rules, right, that impact time that you're outside, things you can do outside, noise levels, things of that nature. I've spoken at length with the servicer as far as runoff, because I know that was mentioned as a potential concern. Taking the efforts there to mitigate any potential runoff impact. So we can go into detail on that, but it wouldn't need to be drained more than once, possibly twice a year, and that would be, unlikely, with very limited water, I guess, if you will, impact. And then more importantly, I know that the noise has come up quite a bit as a concern. So we have put in place, or my property manager and I will put in place, decibel monitors. So it sounds silly, but you can actually monitor the decibels of the hot tub, but it would monitor people speaking, right, and people outside. And upon the research that I performed, because I tried to look, in the ordinances and regs at large, I couldn't find any kind of preferred decibel range. So I was just kind of figuring out what's out there. And this is like the lowest of the low from a decibel range for the hot tubs. It's equivalent to a quiet conversation. It's quieter than any vacuum. It's quieter than, generators. It's quieter than air conditioning units. So kind of, to put it in perspective, it's very quiet. It's brand new. And that's something that these manufacturers seem to take into consideration now. So it's just kind of normal course. But I have way too much information on decibels, if you want to talk about that. But, in general, because it is a short-term rental property and the property manager is nearby, they're South Haven based, they'll be able to monitor from the decibel, the decibel monitor, and then if they need to police it, right, they're going to be there. So as opposed to a resident who's not having this as a short-term rental, right, that you might have issues with, this one would be more enforceable, if you will, from that nature. So that's it kind of in a nutshell, and I understand you will discuss the standards in detail, but that's a high-level overview. So thank you again for your time.
Thank you. All right. Well, I think at this time, I'd entertain a motion to open the public hearing. Let's hear
Motion
on
to
that
open the
real
public
quick.
hearing.
Support.
All right. It has been moved and supported to open the public hearing. Is there anyone in the audience that wishes to speak on this? All right. Seeing none, I'd entertain a motion to close the public
Can I
hearing.
just ask a question? We did get a letter. Can that be entered in by reading it into the public hearing?
Well, we can kind of read that at any time, but yes, if you want to do it
No,
during this point too, that's fine.
I don't have it.
It's not something the group normally does, so I wasn't prepared to do that.
It is, I thought it's a public comment. So
Yeah.
it's like-
Correct.
Yeah, if somebody,
We could probably have Lisa do that during discussion if you
Yeah.
guys would like.
Yep. Yeah, I would actually add it into the discussion portion, but, all right. So if we could have a motion to close.
Motion to close the public hearing.
Thank you.
Support.
Motion and supported. All those in favor?
Yes.
yes, aye.
All right. Public hearing is closed.
Good call out, Chris.
Yep. All right. So,
Can we get that one out of the way first? Because there are some questions regarding that.
sure.
That I think,
Would you like me to read it?
Please.
Sure.
Okay.
hold on.
Okay,
You
little background. So today we received an email, the members of the board did, and again, I don't have the name in front of me. Lisa will fill us in on that.
Do we need to read the name?
Yeah, do we want to read the name?
You're welcome to read the name. It's a public record. It was,
Yeah.
but you're welcome to not read the name as well.
But this is the only thing so far that we have heard from, or any correspondence that we have received on this. All right, sorry.
It says, "Dear Kelly, my wife and I received the Zoning Board and Planning Commission letters associated with 964 Everett Parkway. We have no problem with the short-term rental approval, but we do have an issue with the installation of a hot tub. If there was ever an incident or accident, God forbid death, associated with the use of the hot tub, it is our opinion that all of us members of the association could have some liability and could be brought into a lawsuit. That potential liability is unacceptable to us. We have talked to 2 other homeowners in the association, and they see the risk or liability the same way we do. We don't think it is a good idea to grant the approval. We are good and helpful neighbors, but if we can help it, we don't want to be potentially liable for another neighbor's issues. Thanks and best regards. This is the Banks at 115 Able Avenue.
So not having any idea of whether they're correct or not, would the association be liable for that?
I don't think it's appropriate for me to answer that question. I think that is a question that the association's legal counsel should answer for the association if they have that question.
I
But I
am in
don't-
a
I don't
condo
wanna-
association. Am I allowed to talk about what happens in my condo association?
Every one of them would be different.
Yeah, that's true, because we all have different rules.
So
I would advise the ZBA to stick to the land use matter and the variance question and not the question of liability, which is, as our city attorney stated, is between the association and their attorney.
Yeah, I will agree with that.
Yep.
But it's ultimately up to the association whether they want to look into what their liability would be. But I don't think that any potential liability is relevant to any of the factors that the ZBA would consider for granting or denying a variance.
I agree. I'm glad we entered it into the easily accessible public record since it did come in late. But the liability, I think, would be out of our scope.
So, I'm very curious though on the actual property. So the property is platted obviously in their PUD or whatever they filed on this, so that this is common space. This is a little different.
So the area where the hot tub would be placed is not common space.
Okay,
It is the condominium unit
right.
that is owned by Jessica. And I'm trying to scroll to, I think, the survey page will be helpful. So the heavy black lines here are her condominium unit, which would be like a platted lot for these purposes. And so the hot tub would go in this portion of the lot.
Yep, okay.
So the issue is that the setbacks, the 10-foot setback from this rear lot line and the 10-foot setback from this side lot line can't be met.
Gotcha, okay.
Because
I
there are
see.
only about, there's 14 and a half feet here between the garage and the side lot line.
Right.
So to place a 7-foot hot tub here, there's room for it on the lot, but not
Not within
to
the,
place it and meet the setbacks.
yep, okay.
So if they
Yeah,
have
Cameron.
this setback, they would not require a variance from this board. I think
If
that's
she
important.
could meet the setbacks, correct? No
yes.
variance would be needed.
So that's important, I think, for us to all keep in mind to stay focused.
So okay, now actually being able to zoom in on this a little bit better, I see now that the general common element between the two lots is, okay, I was wondering how it was that we were coming up with all this footage in between the houses, but now I see it much better in this, okay.
That's interesting, yeah, I didn't quite get that either.
Yep, that totally makes sense now.
And even with the general common element, the setback still is not met, correct?
Correct.
Structure to structure.
Well,
Or proposed placement to structure.
well, lot to structure.
Lot to
Yep,
structure,
yep,
yeah.
or property line, because that's a common element. The property line is actually here instead of, this is their property line, that's her property line, and this is common space.
Right.
So instead of in a typical situation,
The lot
you know,
lines would touch.
the lot lines would touch, so.
And just to ask a question, and what's your perspective on the common lot
In what, which
in
regard?
regard to, because reading your proposal, how do you see that common lot coming into play regarding these setbacks?
So the limit, it's called limited common area where I intend to place the hot tub. And so everything in between is a general common element or area. It's defined differently in a couple different places. The distance between the border of my 44 by 70 foot unit and the next 44 by 70 foot unit is over 20 feet. It's about 22 feet where I measured it. So in a typical world, if you sliced it down the middle, right, you'd have your 10 feet and another 10 feet, right? So you would meet and exceed a 10-foot requirement. It's just, as, you know, the chairman was saying, it's just, there's no such thing. It's, you know, there's almost like no lines. There's basically no divider between the two. If that makes sense, there's not like a set line in between them. But from the intent, right, of the ordinance is to give the space for the privacy and the distance. So that is there. It's just not delineated in your typical fee simple matter, you know, where you have a property line.
Interesting. And I'm assuming that probably runs on every house in there.
Yeah.
Correct.
It does, and I think that a couple of the photos that you included in the packet are helpful in illustrating where you kind of laid out, is that a tape measure here?
Yeah, 2 tape measures, really
So,
sophisticated there, yeah.
so the,
It's showing, yeah, that would be extended. I know we had bifurcated, so initially the request was all together to extend the patio and then, you know, put the hot tub on it, but I would extend the patio regardless, so that's a separate application. But, yeah, the point is kind of that bottom corner, if we're looking at it, it would be your bottom right-hand corner there is where the hot tub, you know, would be, and then moving toward the home.
Yeah.
But if you kind of look to the right, you can tell the distance between, you know, that area is much smaller than the distance between my unit and the next unit. Like I said, where I measured it in a few different places, about 22 feet.
Yeah.
So, and give or take, because it's not like perfectly straight
Right.
lines, but.
Question for Kelly. Reading through the packet, to me, it sounded like the HOA said it would be permitted if we are to approve it. We don't have a lot of applications from PUDs, so I didn't know, is it within their purview if they wanted to still approve it without us? Are they able to do that, or would that be non-conforming? Because we don't have PUDs come up that often. I think it's important to.
right, so the
Discuss.
homeowners association process is really separate from ours, and we don't really get involved in that process. I mean, they could approve it or disapprove it.
That was my understanding, that they could approve it themselves.
Right.
So I thought it was odd that it was put on us to decide before they decide.
Well, I suppose, you know, they're still looking for compliance with city permitting, and that's fine for them to have that process.
Yeah, that's how I read it. It's like,
Yeah.
if you guys approve it, we'll approve it or not approve it.
Yeah, and I look at them as kind of 2 separate tracks, right? I can't do one without both. So, you know, I'm not going to move forward if you don't approve it or if they don't approve it, but I can only move forward if both approve. So, whichever one comes first, I don't know that that matters. I just think they would both
'Cause-
have to approve.
I mean, so looking at this, I mean, obviously, there's not great measurements on all of it, but the house doesn't fall within the setbacks.
I think we can't rely on the GIS imaging
Right.
to tell whether or not the house is truly within the setbacks. Yeah, I wouldn't.
Yeah, I know.
count on
It
that.
Oh, I
just-
know what you're talking about.
I guess I'm just trying to make a point that from what it appears, the house wouldn't even be within the typical setbacks, which, I mean, I know the PUD supersedes all of that, you know what I mean?
Yeah, it may or may not be. I
Yeah,
wouldn't
so
count on
that-
the
that's why this-
aerial imaging, yeah.
Yeah, this whole thing is kind of odd to me, but,
There's definitely a few different pictorial representations, I guess, if you
Right.
will, from a
Yes.
general sense. So there's a lot to
Yeah.
take in, so
yeah.
I can appreciate that, but.
Is it known if there are any other units in the development that have a hot tub or project similar to what you're pursuing?
I don't believe so, My understanding is there's not, but just because they weren't pursued, I mean, it's not cheap, right? So there's ongoing maintenance, there's a pretty significant expense. So I don't know if that was the reason, but that's what one person had speculated, but they don't know. When I first, looked at the home, the seller's agent was, that was my first question out of my mouth. And he was like, oh, absolutely, you can put it in there. That's something that the HOA allows. So it was interesting that they had thought about it and had the conversations. It just wasn't something that had been done before. So I don't know if rhyme or reason to that, but I don't believe there are others there.
So I kept going back to the issue of, and I've used this before, is you kind of knew what you're getting yourself into, right? This isn't a new build. This has been there for a while. This area was built, and the way I read some of your commentary, Kelly, was they limit the amount of space so that they can do other things, right? They could probably put more homes in there. There's a pool that already exists. So it's kind of like, that's what you're buying into, right? And as we go through the standards, I don't want to preempt the standards. It just seemed to me that this is going to be a tough one because it's pre-existing. It's pretty clear cut from the measurement standpoints that it doesn't meet the zoning requirements.
It wasn't clear cut to me when I purchased it. I mean, it was literally a condition of my purchase. And the HOA had no idea or no reason to believe it would be an issue. And I look at a pool, a community pool, quite differently. That is year-round, that is 3 months of the year, right? And it's community. Whereas nothing, I don't think it's for us to assume the intent, right, of the builders, right, who are developing the territory.
These ordinances were on the books before you bought. And
certainly, but I had no reason to believe this was an issue. And the reality of, to your comment about the space, right? I'm going back to that. So if this is a private, behind in your unit amenity, right, that pretty much everybody else can have, and it's not something that seems to be.
Not everybody else in your area could have, though.
In which way?
In the fact that you're in a condo association with homes built like this.
Similarly situated residents. Generally in the community, right? So this is common. It's quite common.
I agree, but I'm not sure that this is much different than the house I live in.
You're not sure it is, or you're saying it is?
It is. It's different.
Well, your opinion.
And for a reason.
There's a community area, and people like a swimming pool in the summer, right? And you're on a beach city, right? But this is private year-round. It's a quite different amenity that I just don't think we can assume was contemplated into this. It certainly was not in any way apparent. I had no reason to believe that it wouldn't be an option in purchasing the home. So because you had two comments there. One, that this is unique and there's a community piece, and another that there's.
Yeah, I guess my comment comes down to be brutally frank, is ignorance of the law or the ordinance isn't an excuse for saying, hey, I want to put this in there. These ordinances have been on the books, because I think when we go through the 7 standards, it's going to be very difficult, okay? Because from a quantitative standpoint, it's pretty firm. You don't meet any of the setbacks, okay?
I actually do, 100%. It's just the designation of a property line. The intent of the ordinance is to have privacy and space and distance between, right, the hot tub itself, the amenity, so it's not disruptive to a neighbor or others, right, in the community. And that meets and exceeds this. In any other world, this meets and exceeds it. It's just there's not a line down the middle between my property and the neighbor.
So I guess my question to the attorney and to Kelly is, should we take this general common area, should we take that into consideration in terms of the setback requirements? Can we use that area to say it's okay?
I think you can, but the ultimate question of what is the intent of the zoning ordinance is up to the ZBA to decide. So, yes, that is something that you can consider, but I can't tell you how to consider it. That's your decision.
Okay.
So here's my problem. I'm still 1,000% hung up on the fact that we are basically governing over something that is in a PUD that, as I'm looking at the actual survey of this does not, the house itself does not meet those same setbacks. So for us to say that the hot tub has to meet it when the house doesn't meet it, I don't see where we have any bearing on that.
It's fair. It's very fair.
Are you talking about on page 26?
I'm on page 36, the actual survey.
Okay.
It shows that it is a 44-foot lot with a 36-foot house.
So do we know the setbacks? Where are we seeing the setbacks on here?
Well, we're going based on the 10-foot.
So the setbacks for the PUD are different than other setbacks
Right.
for R1A or R1B neighborhoods. They're specific to the PUD.
Right. So
That
these-
was approved as during the PUD approval. The building setbacks were.
Okay.
So they were given a building window for the structure, for the primary
Right.
structure. It could be anywhere in that building window.
Exactly. But where are we pulling the information for the hot tub?
Well, there wasn't a building window for the hot tub,
Exactly. So we have to go back to,
the zoning ordinance
right,
for the hot tub.
right.
Yes.
So, again, I feel like this is a fine line between the PUD and the city, again, that to me, it should be within their building window of what the setback was for the buildings.
I have a question.
If we're considering this a pool or a structure like any other thing, if we wanted to put this in this particular neighborhood where it required the 10-foot setback, or if it would required a 15-foot setback in this neighborhood, you know what I mean? I guess that's the point I'm trying to get to, is that this has its own setbacks. It has its own, it's PUD.
So, Mr. Chairman, are you suggesting that a PUD amendment of some kind would be a more appropriate way to handle this?
That was going to be my question, Mr. Chairman. With PUDs, this is already built, they're built. If they said, okay, now we want everyone to have a hot tub and it to be just like this application, what would the channel for that be? Would
Well-
it be everyone as individuals, or would it be how would that process look? Because I certainly don't think it would be here.
I personally have a sneaking suspicion that the reason that we're here right now is because this particular board wants to see what we do with this, and then we'll figure out how they best proceed. Whether it's a PUD amendment or, I don't see how we can apply our rules inside of a PUD without them amending or them just saying, yes, you can or cannot do this. Why is it coming to us?
I kind of agree with you, and I was part of the zoning or planning commission when they were doing some of these. And it never occurred to us then to think that someone would want to come in and put something different in there, because you kind of think, oh, yeah, it's okay, you've got everything written out, but there's so many specifics as to those setbacks, as to, road frontage and alleyways, and have to be specific to we had a big fight about the fire trucks, as I remember. That wasn't wide enough, that he had to come back to us on that. And I think that intent really needs to go with the PUD. I think, was there an intent ever to have pools or private pools or hot tubs? I don't know. It didn't come up that I remember, but I think that when you have a PUD, it's a very specifically drawn out, very specifically laid out plat. And so once you add one in, you need to make sure everybody else can do it too. So I'm with you on that, Randy.
Yeah.
I think.
I think that is a fine line right there that I mean, because to me, if I look at those standards, I could go through that list of standards and say every one of those is met.
I probably argue everyone's not.
Right. So,
But your point is well taken. To me, you know, the house structure kind of dictates what the setback standards are for that particular area. And if I'm looking at your pictures and whatnot, it's like, yeah, fine.
again, that's because it's a PUD, because of how they did everything, they were allowed to do that. So, to me, I mean, if I were to say right now that we could grant this, I would base it on what their measurements are, not on what ours are, which I know we can't do, but this whole thing just seems very odd. And quite honestly, I don't know where to go with it.
I had not thought of it that way either. You kind of bring up an interesting twist to it. And I do know in that area there are no other hot tubs. They do have a community area with a pool and a clubhouse that is fenced. So I think that's the space around the homes is very limited, and
I don't know. I will be the first to admit that when this first came up, I was completely shocked myself that we had the same standards for a hot tub that we do for a pool.
The same for me. Yeah, I
So-
did actually pull it, so a swimming pool is defined in the zoning ordinance as any structure,
Right.
either above or below grade, that exceeds 24 inches of depth, intended for swimming or bathing.
And I know Kelly's gonna hate me for saying this, but I think that's one of the things that planning should look at, and sorry.
Your whiteboard just got
Don't have
fuller.
to be sorry.
Yeah. I personally don't agree with it, but that's my personal opinion. A hot tub is a movable object. It is not a permanent structure. It's far less of a permanent structure than a shed or an accessory building, and
Well, and generally, when we're making decisions in the ZBA, we are often discussing how they have a magnitude that could go on for decades, for 100 years from now, and the average lifespan of a hot tub is not even close.
No.
I'm sure the applicant would wish that. but-
10 to 15 years probably,
gonna say.
maybe.
It's still considered an accessory structure, so we have to
Per the
deal with
zoning
it.
ordinance, that
Right.
is what it is,
Yep,
yes.
yep,
We deal with what we're
Right,
held.
exactly.
I mean, we have to.
yep. No.
So I guess if it came down to going through the standards, are we applying the standards to the city ordinances?
I think we have to.
Or are we applying them to the precedent set by this PUD?
I would assume we have to go by the city.
Yeah,
Because,
so
again, we
What's our
don't know
attorney
all
say?
the,
the variance request is from, what is it, section 2112, which is the setback for the pool, which is outside of the scope of the PUD. So your PUD section 1814 subsection 4, addresses appeals and variances. This is because an approved PUD has been reviewed and approved by the Planning Commission and City Council. The ZBA shall not have jurisdiction to consider variances from the requirements of this article, nor may decisions related to a PUD be appealed to the Zoning Board of Appeals.
There you go.
Now, one of the interesting questions, though, then becomes, obviously, section 2112 is not part of the requirements of Article 18. But I have not looked in detail at the PUD approval for this project.
right.
So if there's a thought that this should be addressed as a PUD amendment rather than a variance, that's something that I would like a little bit more time to look into.
Understand.
From my perspective, potentially, because going through the 8 standards, as I agree with both of you, looking through, I could go one way depending on how I'm looking at the property. I could go another way, looking at the zoning ordinance. Also, you know, a hot tub in and of itself is more of a want than a need. If we need to address the elephant in the room here, we're not talking about some other applications that we've had where it's a little bit more cut and dry. But when you look at this development, there are many properties that are the same. The conformity was designed with a purpose. So to me, if I were to approve this application, we would need to approve the same for every single property in that.
Yes.
And in that case, I feel like this is outside of our purview, and that also is one of the 8 standards, is not so common, and right there, that kind of blows the whole thing up.
Right, yeah. And, you know, I think you can argue the need factor till you're blue in the face. I think personally, a hot tub is something that if you want a hot tub, you should be able to have a hot tub. If it fits within your.
I do agree.
Within your property.
I do
you should
agree,
be able
but
to
I don't think necessarily you should get approval from the ZBA to get a hot tub. That I feel like that, not that I feel, going through the 8 standards, it's not about that. It gives
Right.
us very clear direction.
And
So-
approve one, and we end up approving one for the entire PUD, which changes the nature of the PUD.
Exactly.
And
Right. Yeah.
we're not that.
Right. Yeah, I don't see it, I guess.
So I would wonder what makes most sense if council's recommendation, if this is something we should delay so we don't create a situation that is more complex.
What we want to
Or
do,
if we
it's in
should
your
go
best
through-
interest.
Right, I was just going to say.
I mean, so, if we start going through the process of going through the individual standards and we go on the record,
And if you're not sure how to interpret them, then.
well, but it came up with the people that came before you. Regarding if we deny a variance, you know, you have to wait for a year or whatever it happens to be, and then you're like, we're trying to keep it
Yeah.
in place still, based on what we decide and how we go. Because Randy, I agree that everybody should have a hot tub, but I don't agree we should give variances so everybody can have a hot tub. And I think that's what we would have to do
In this case, yeah.
in this case.
And I don't think we can.
And then I also think, correct me if I'm wrong, if we do that and we give this, grant this variance, and all the properties are conforming, I think if I was part of that PUD and I had a contrarian point of view, I would want to be heard in a public hearing on that
Right.
before we did it.
Yep. Well, and that's the thing, everyone was noticed about this within that scope, so they did have that chance, and I completely understand what you're saying there.
But I don't know, do they know what that means, though?
Yeah,
And the board did sign off, you know,
Right.
in September
Yeah.
on this. So, I mean, I believe they're all notified. I don't know 100%, you know, with certainty.
I would feel more comfortable for making a decision that affects you once I've heard from the attorney as to whether we can actually do something or not. I feel like,
Yeah.
we're kind of flying blind up here a little bit, and I don't feel that's fair to you. So,
Right.
and you paid to be here, so we would like to be fair to you.
Yeah.
I think I need more information.
Yeah, I'm hesitant to engage in a decision that could tie things up for the applicant or make things more complicated if postponement helps guide us in the right direction.
Or make a free-for-all. I don't want to make it a free-for-all.
Right.
If I could just say, Randy, you said something previously, that what if, just, you know, this is another sort of thing that could occur. What if somebody wanted a shed? It's kind of the same thing. It's, you know, swimming pool, a shed would have the same, or, you know, some kind of, that it would be the same type of situation. It would have to go in that little box. And I really appreciated what you said, Brandy, about the conformity. The whole idea of this community is conformity, and I think it's kind of a simplicity approach, you know, keeping things orderly and all that. So I agree with all of you that I feel like we have to have more information before we could proceed with this.
Yeah, because you can't interpret the HOA's intent or, you know, the intent of the
I do-
PUD, right? And you don't want to.
PUD
I mean,
intent,
I'm
yeah.
sure
Well,
that's
yeah,
why.
it's, I personally think it 100% comes back to the PUD and to their amendment of it, because again, I don't see, as you clearly stated, how we can rule on something within the PUD. You know, as far as never, and that was my whole purpose behind this, is never have I heard of that. I've worked with multiple PUDs over the years, and never once have I heard of an individual that lives within inside a PUD coming to a zoning board.
And I only came here because they told me I had to, so.
Well, no, and I
I'm like,
understand, yeah.
I wouldn't be asking for more people for
I
approval if I
understand.
didn't need to, so.
Half of this I didn't think about until tonight.
Right.
No, as I think about it more, and again, I would like a little bit more time to look into this,
And that's,
but
yeah.
my inclination now is that this should probably be handled as a PUD amendment rather than a variance. But again, like a little bit of time to just confirm that. It is a bit odd that typically when you would have a PUD amendment, you know, it would be often the developer coming in, and
Right.
here you have one property owner trying to amend their individual, essentially, unit. So which kind of weighs in favor of, you know,
Right.
the variance route.
Right.
So I see arguments for both methods.
Yep.
I guess maybe my suggestion would be a postponement, and if our office and city staff determine that a variance is unnecessary, at that point, the applicant can just withdraw the variance request and handle it as a PUD amendment. If we determine that a variance is the appropriate way to handle it, then it can come back at the next meeting. I mean, I certainly think this is a relatively easy question that shouldn't take long, so if you want to postpone it to the next month, I would be ready.
Okay.
I don't anticipate needing weeks to research this, but
I'd love a motion and.
Mr. Chair, I move we postpone, oh, now I got to get in the right spot, hold on. Thank you. Thank you. We postpone the dimensional variance at 964 Everett Parkway until next month,
Pending,
pending information from the city attorney and recommendation on which way to go.
second.
Support?
Thank you. It has been moved and supported. All those in favor?
Yes.
Aye, yes.
Opposed? All right. Motion passes. Yes, I agree. I think that's, since it's such an odd thing,
I would rather take a little more time and hopefully be on a track that makes the
Yes.
most sense rather than set things in motion that are difficult to set back.
absolutely. Absolutely.
Appreciate that. Thank you.
Yeah,
all.
so
Set back, get it?
unfortunately, we don't really have an answer for you, but,
But we don't have a no.
right, exactly.
I'll take that.
Well, just in my ongoing education, what's harder to get, a variance or a PUD amendment?
Depend- Who controls the PUD right now? I don't even know which phase this is.
So this is phase one,
Okay,
so
so it's HOA controlled now at
it
this
should
point?
be HOA controlled.
Yep.
Well, I guess we'll double check that too.
Yep. I was gonna say, because you may as well double check all of that because you know what's gonna happen next. So,
And I would also, and I know we don't have any jurisdiction here, I'd also get that liability issue addressed.
Yeah, I mean, my 2 cents on that is, I understand that, and, you know, under to whatever documentation to ensure that, you know, I'll indemnify the HOA. I mean, I get it, that's what
I
the
think
insurance for.
you're gonna need to get the HOA on your side, right?
No, I get it, yeah. those are just my,
I can't figure out how they're coming up with that unless they thought that part of it was in the general common area, but I have no idea. All right.
all right, thank you.
Okay. Well, get something different every day. All right, well, I guess then we are moving on. Commissioner comments. Lisa?
Do we have, is there comments for anything else on there? There's nothing else after,
Nope.
sorry, I don't have
Nope.
it in front of me. I have no comments.
All right. Brandy?
I do love hot tubs, but we have a very narrow scope and job to do here. So thank you for everyone's patience. Thank you to city staff, city attorney, and all the applicants tonight for being very well prepared. It was a very big packet, but a well-prepared packet. And thank you to the board for a very good conversation tonight. Definitely seems like we keep learning as we go. We have a lot of interesting applications, but that's a good thing because all the applications should be pretty different. So good night tonight. Thank you.
Chris?
No, I echo Brandy's comments. I thought the discussion helped me understand and kind of get to a place. Because again, at the end of the day, when people come in and they bring these things, it's like, they're all well-intentioned, they're great ideas.
Yep.
But it also thanks to you guys, city staff and the attorney for keeping us focused on what we're supposed to do and what we're not supposed to do. So it was great.
Absolutely. Yeah, I echo all of that. I learned something every single applicant we learned something from, and that's really, really fun. Number two, I just want to know, are we saying yes or I? Because I say it wrong every time, people.
I go back and forth too.
Okay, so it's not just me that's screwing it up. Okay.
You know, unless I hear something on the no side, you guys are fine.
Okay.
I again would like to thank both of you guys for everything. It is, obviously, it's a weird one, so I look forward to seeing what comes back on this and how we move forward, because I'm sure this won't be the only time this ever happens. Thank you for reading for me tonight. Obviously, the voice is somewhat gone. Thank you, Brandy, for all that you do, and I appreciate everybody up here. And, I think it was honestly a great discussion tonight, and other than that, I believe we're adjourned.